Trusting your intuition will lead you to create a passionate and joy-filled life. Are you ready to get turned on to a new way of thinking? Are you ready to meet people who have conversations that speak to the things that truly light you up? What if you had access to a podcast that featured women just like you, who shared stories that empowered you to let go of a life tied to others' expectations and to start living in the now with passion and joy? I'm Jacqueline Rodriguez, founder of Your Intuitive Light Coaching, owner of Enlightened Styles Holistic Salon, and your host of the Intuitive Light podcast for the enlightened entrepreneur. My goal is to help women recognize how tightly they are tied to negative thoughts and other people's expectations, so that they can fully embrace and become the untethered CEO they've always wanted to be. You're about to meet some amazing women who will inspire you to untether yourself from any fears, negativity that you carry and become the untethered CEO of your life. This podcast is for you, woman, champion, warrior, entrepreneur, mother, phenomenon. Hi everyone, welcome back to the Intuitive Light podcast and show. Thank you so much for joining us back today. We've got a really special guest today, Mai-kee, and she is all about strategies and mindset of getting on other podcasts and getting yourself out there for your business and becoming visible. So without further ado, here is Mai-kee. Hi.
Yay!
Welcome.
Thanks so much for having me. Well, we're obviously in sync.
Yes, we are. It always works beautiful that way.
Yeah. Well, thank you for having me here, Jacqueline. Really appreciate it.
I appreciate you being here. We met at Amy Porterfield's
Entrepreneur experience.
Exactly,
Yeah.
the EE experience.
Yeah.
And it was so much fun, and we had a chance just to connect a little bit. And then because of this wonderful social media and being able to be on the internet now, we've been able to stay connected. And where are you at exactly?
Well, at this moment in time, I'm based in London in the UK.
Okay. That's wonderful. Yeah, see, and this is the beautiful thing about it is we really get to expand our circle and our community when we have the internet and we have these awesome things to stay connected. And I've been so blessed to get to meet so many amazing women that otherwise we wouldn't have.
Yeah, I agree with that. There's so much power in, the online space today. And as you mentioned, we met at the event, but we didn't really have a chance to properly connect because we were introduced by our mutual friend, Teresa, I believe. And then she was like, oh yeah, meet Jacqueline. I was like, Jacqueline, so nice to meet you. And suddenly the doors open. I'm like, I'm so sorry, but I'm ready to the front.
That was crazy. Actually, everybody, so the whole experience, we're sitting there waiting for the doors to open and everybody is piling up. And the second the doors opened, it was like a madhouse. I'm not even kidding. I thought I might get trampled a few times. Everybody was just running to the front and I was like, okay. I think the first day I had gotten there early, so I was able to get to the front. The other days I'm like, you know what? I am fine. I'm not going to get trampled. I was somewhere in the middle.
If by any chance, you're in front and something like there was a little bit of stumble, I would have been able to dodge you because a really strange talent of mine is that I'm able to run very quickly through crowds and not hit anyone. So don't worry, you would have been safe if you were near me.
Okay, so next time we go, I'm just going to make sure I stay with you and I'm just going to hold you. And
I'm like, move people. Me, Jacqueline, coming through.
But that was such an amazing experience. And I loved afterwards being able to, stay connected with so many people and then get to know you more. So tell us a little bit about your background, who you are, and what you do.
Ooh, okay. So this is where to start. So, um, as you introduced me as someone who, now helps people get booked on Brand Align podcast to expand their reach and, spread their message, make a bigger impact, that has been like one of the most amazing shifts that I've made in my business to focus on this. But as you can probably tell, this is not where I've always been. In fact, my first business, I was a freedom from emotional eating coach. So that's quite a few shifts I've made. I'm trying my very best not to use the word pivot because it's very overused right now. But
That is
yeah,
true.
so I started off in the coaching world after some personal things that happened in like when I was around 19 in university. So I have a psychology degree, and I realized that there was a piece of the psychology that was so missing, and it was that humanistic connection piece. And coaching was how I found it. And I was so blessed to have found like this new medium of connecting with people. And then as I started to grow and learn more about what my clients really wanted, they wanted confidence coaching. And then I thought, okay, confidence coaching in regards to what though? And then I found myself around a lot of business owners. So there suddenly was confidence coaching attached to video marketing. So that's how it all was. And then after like training under various mentors, I trained under one around a year. And I learned everything for what it took to take a business from zero to not multiple, but like six figures in the first 12 months. And so I was on the front end and in the trenches for about 13 launches in a year. And I picked up community management and sales and marketing, all the things I was actually missing as a new coach, because I was one of those coaches that was good at coaching, but not so great at sales and marketing. So I managed to supplement my education, and then I went off, on my own again, like after basically being an intern to my mentor for a year. And that's pretty much how I landed where I am. Like, I did focus a lot on launching and copywriting at first, but then I thought a huge missing piece, Jacqueline, is that there are so many amazing heart-centered entrepreneurs out there, and I love serving these people. And they have so much to give to the world, but unless they have focused on some form of visibility and audience building, no matter how amazing their launch strategy is, no matter how amazing their offer is, they will not be in front of the right people unless they put themselves out there more. And then podcast guesting was my own way of putting myself out there. And I really learned quickly. I had quite the knack for it because of my public speaker experience and being able to use my copywriting skills in writing a really persuasive pitch. And my results have been consistent with myself and with my clients. I have around a 33% booking rate for my own business. And for my clients, normally around 20 to 25% for pitches. And it's just been incredible since then. And so that's why I'm here today. It's so meta that we're talking about podcast guesting as I'm guesting on this podcast.
Yes.
So, it works, guys.
I love your story with really not pivoting, but shifting. Shifting the things that we do. And it really is important to understand as an entrepreneur that just because you get into something doesn't mean that has to be the end all be all.
Yes, 100%.
Being able to shift and move, let your business be fluid in the things that are so important to you, because once you get into something, you grow. And you want to be able to grow your business along with what you learn and the things that you pick up. So I love that you shared that with us, because it gives people permission to think outside of the box a little bit and not be so held down like that they have to make this one business work, because you can
Mm,
take it and really shift it into something that's so much more freeing, that you love, and that comes easy instead of like really having to work hard at a specific business just to stay in it.
yeah, I love that you brought that up, because I'm not going to lie, as I was making all of these shifts, a part of me felt so flaky and inconsistent. And I think that's why a lot of people fear making these shifts, because like, oh, I don't want to look like I don't know what I'm doing. And I keep changing my mind and being fickle. And then what it took is for my my brother, he's not a man of many words, let's just say that. But when I kind of shared this with him, he said to me, you know what, Mai-kee, to the outside, some people may think that. Some people may think that you are flaky and inconsistent. But do you know what I see? I see someone who's willing to try and has the courage to do something. And that's something that not many people do. So keep going.
Oh, that's so beautiful. That like really brings kind of tears to my eyes, because that's what people need to hear.
Mm.
And that's the thing. We get judged. I mean, you know, we're in a society of such judgment on so many different things, but we don't have to allow that to hold us back. And growing and taking, you know, that step forward without the fear, you know, just going for it is such a beautiful thing. I love that you told us that story. And I'm sure that, you know, so many people need to hear that right now, because it is scary. And I know exactly where you come, because I have done all kinds of things. And I keep shifting and just growing and moving forward. And I may look flaky to some people or all over the place, but I don't care, because this is where I'm supposed to be.
Yeah, 100%.
So let's tell us about, you know, what you do now. Like, now that you have grown into this and it seems like it comes very naturally and easy to you, tell us about how you do that.
So you mean podcast guesting?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
your business, let's see, I think we have to create the space and be visible.
Yeah, that's the first step that you need to take if you are making this declaration to the universe or whichever thing you believe in, is you need to create the space first. So before we get into the strategies, because there is definitely the how-to, but before that is even relevant to you, you need to kind of be willing to let go of the person you kind of always been. And that in itself sounds terrifying to many. And even myself, as I say it out loud, I'm like, oh my gosh, it is terrifying. But here's the thing. I so remember before I started my own podcast, which was like just under a year ago, June 2019, before I did that, before I had a website up, before I started guesting on other podcasts, I was so inconsistent. And what I secretly loved about the inconsistency was that it meant that I didn't have to show up. And it almost kind of gives you permission to not play a bigger game, to continually play small, because it's safe. No one knows about you. But the moment you make this declaration that you are playing a bigger game, that you want to be more visible, that's when it can be really scary, because like, oh crap, I need to show up now. Pardon my language. But that's how it kind of feels. And you need to prepare yourself for that. And a way that I do is I help my students and my clients through this visualization. And so I'm hoping that I can share it with you today, Jacqueline, and with your audience today. So when it comes to being visible, people worry so much about being in the spotlight, right? Like, you know, the spotlight's on them and it's really like a lot of pressure. And all it takes is for us to just like turn around the spotlight onto the people we serve. So I call this the golden field visualization. And it starts off with when my mentor told me once what hell on earth is. He said, hell on earth is meeting the person you could have been. And I agree to an extent. I believe that hell on earth is meeting all of the people you could have helped. And that's where the visualization comes in. So I'm going to close my eyes as I do this. So you're more than welcome to join me in doing so.
I will. I love this.
So I want you to imagine you're in a golden field. It's beautiful. The sky is clear, it's blue, the sun is shining on you, the wind is kind of like breezing through all the gold around you, and you look around with such wonder until you stop and you see someone in front of you. She's a client you never had, and she looks at you and tells you, "Why didn't you help me?" And then you sit with yourself for a moment and you think, what do you mean? I mean, someone else could have helped you, couldn't they? And then she's like, "No, I needed you." And then as you turn around, there's another woman. You look in another direction, there's someone else. Until you keep turning and turning around until the whole golden field is covered. And the people surrounding you all saying the same thing. "Why didn't you help me?" So I don't know about you, Jacqueline, but as I open my eyes, I think to myself, wow, that makes me feel powerful because my work can help these people. I don't know them yet, and they never will know me unless I put myself out there. That is what I think of when I get too much into my head. This is what I remind my students and my clients when they get too into their own heads, worrying about the visibility aspect. I tell them, visibility is not for you. It's to help the people you started your business for. And when they just remember that, it's not all on them, they realize that they're here for a bigger reason.
That was so pretty. Sorry, you can keep going.
No, I was just pretty much saying that is how you create the space for yourself when you realize how truly powerful you are and what your work stands for. And that always creates such a visceral reaction in my body. I almost feel like this weight is on me, and the only way to lift it is by showing up.
And I agree wholeheartedly with everything you just, and I loved the visualization of it, being able to see those, because I see both sides of who you could be and never taking the chance to actually step into that power. And then, like you said, with the other side of it, is all these people need your help. They need you. And I don't think that we think of it that way, um, because, like you said, we're so worried about what everybody thinks, or we think that there's, somebody else is doing it, so why do they need me? But being able to be visible, I teach my clients that we've got to start with the inner self love and really finding that clarity and loving themselves unconditionally so that they can turn around and serve their clients. Because no matter what we look like, what we do, who we are, where we're from, it really doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how we talk or the things that we're sharing. Like, we're sharing our story, and someone out there needs you, needs that story, will connect with you and the way you teach things.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to start from our self love and start really loving who we are completely, wholly. Doesn't matter, what society thinks. And then turning all the focus on the client and what you can do to serve them. That was so beautiful and such an important part of being a business owner. Like, we have to do those. we can't be ready without those. And just like you said, no matter the marketing strategy, no matter how much money you're throwing at it, if I always teach my clients, like, if you don't have the self-love, like, you can't turn around and give it. And with yours, like, it's being able to put yourself out there and be visible and have that that power of knowing that you have so many people to help. That was so awesome.
Thank you.
And then, so after we have the visible part and we're really focusing all the attention on the client and how you can help them, what do you suggest doing next?
So once you've created the space, now is the time when you can have a strategic mind. And so this brings me to the first phase that you've popped onto the screen right now, if you're watching this interview. So purposeful strategy. So the biggest mistake that I see when people want to guest on podcasts is that they just focused on getting on the podcast. That's it, right? It's just the visibility aspect, right? But I don't believe in just plain visibility. I believe in value-driven visibility, which is where this all comes into play for the first phase of my Pitch for Purpose framework. So purposeful strategy, what is that? It's thinking about your ideal listener. So this is kind of like the same as your ideal customer avatar or client avatar, whatever you want to call the person you serve. You think about them first and foremost, and you think about where they're at right now in their journey, and what can you uniquely bring to the table. These are known as your topics of influence. So what things can you share? What things can you teach that will help them move step by step towards where they want to be and who they want to be? So this phase is all about, intentionality in the person you're trying to reach, the topics of influence you can share, and that's actually what goes into your pitches, and also understanding your own story, how you can tell it succinctly on an interview. And finally, how are you going to measure the impact of your podcast guesting? So I like to always see things from 2 points of view. So we all know what ROI stands for, return on investment, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I know that there's always going to be some folks, and rightfully so, who want to focus on like, oh, okay, so what can actually help my business grow, like financially? Fair enough. So you can definitely measure the amount of leads that you get from particular shows, and how many applications you get for people wanting to join your group programs, subscribers to your email list. These are the hard metrics. Totally fine. Have those in mind. Yeah. But I also want to shine a light on the other type of ROI. So this is coined by one of my friends, Joe Addison. So shout out to you, Joe, if you're ever watching this. He shared the other ROI with me, and it hit me so deep. And that is the ripple of impact. And I think for your listeners, Jacqueline, this is probably going to be one of the bigger ROIs that they focus on.
I agree.
Because the thing is with podcast guesting, if people come to me and say, I want to get on X amount of shows and get X amount of income, I'm like, sorry, we're not a great fit. And that's because of the ripple of impact is totally ignored at that point. And here's the thing, just like how we're told in sales, right? Sometimes it takes between 8 to 12 touch points for someone to even consider buying something from you. It's the same principle. When someone hears you on a podcast for the first time, they may need to hear you showing up in multiple areas in the same sphere that they're in order for them to be like, oh, Jacqueline is quite the expert because I've seen her pop up here and here and here. It's the same thing. You need to show up multiple ways in multiple shows, kind of like sharing around your same topics of influence, so you are the go-to expert in an area. That's what it means to have a purposeful strategy. Know how you're going to measure it in regards to your return on investment and your ripple of impact. And that's what you kind of need. Not even kind of, that is what you need before you even consider pitching.
You said it with being, my listeners, that's what we're going to focus on. Because obviously all of us are in a business, we're entrepreneurs to make money. but that is not the end all be all. I always tell my clients that we're looking at, like, if you're standing in a lake and you drop a pebble, the ripple effect, who are you affecting and how are you affecting them, goes so much further than just the money that we bring in. Because we all know money comes and goes, and we don't have to focus on that. The more that we're putting ourselves out there, and the importance of standing up as a leader in your field, it's serving those clients. It's serving all of those people who said, hey, why didn't you help me? You're helping them at that point. And that's the thing that we have to focus the most on, because we get very focused on just one thing, and it is more of the making of the money. But a heart-centered entrepreneur does so much more. And I think that it's important for people to realize that you can be both, because obviously we need to make money, but I'm more worried about the impact I can have on others. And that's how you really get so much further. When you're setting people up to, like, really start interviewing, or getting their message out there because they are focused on the right ROI, how do we go about that? Because I know this was a little bit of a struggle for me, trying to figure out how to even get out there now that I know what I wanted to do.
So I think that's phase 3. So if we could jump to phase 2, which is the pitch process.
Okay.
So, good student here, like jumping in the gun.
Of course.
So this does lead into the part that you just talked about. So before we do get there, we do need to, create this method of communication before we can even talk about this tool. So that's when it comes to the personalized pitching. And it's exactly what it says, personalized pitching. And I know that may not be the most groundbreaking thing, but you would be shocked. And Jacqueline, I think this is something that you have experienced, or you will experience a lot more of as this show grows as well, because you will get pitched as a podcaster. And I think there's not as much education out there in regards to how we can really resonate with the host, because the biggest taboo I see out there in pitches today, not even personalizing the name, let alone the show.
So
Right?
they pitch you and they don't even say the name or the show in their pitch.
Nope.
Okay. Listeners, we got to listen up to this so that you can go out there and not make these mistakes, because especially the bigger shows, I'm sure, they're getting stuff all the time. So we've got to be strategic and again, serve the the person you're pitching. You've got to serve them too. But I'll let you go. That's just so important. I'm shocked.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you brought up that word serve, because there's this mantra that I always tell my students and my clients, whoever comes across my methodology, I always tell them this: keep this mantra close to you. Service over self-importance.
So important.
And trust me, you'll know when it's the other way around. Self-importance over service. And those are the folks that I can't serve, because I think, okay, we're missing out the space that we created together, from a place of service. We missed out the purposeful strategy. They focus on the visibility, and that's their goal. So I have no right to say what their goal should be. But if someone's to work with me, they need to focus on the purpose and the service that they provide. So that's it in a nutshell. But all it is to this phase is 2 things. I call it the PR method because it's very easy to remember, and because podcast guesting is a form of PR, technically.
Oh, yeah.
But it doesn't stand for public relations. What it stands for is personalization and relevancy.
Okay.
That's as simple as it gets. Personalization is in regards to referencing their name, spelling it correctly, and I emphasize that more because my name is spelled Mai-Kee. So not only is it mispronounced all the time, and I don't blame people, but because my name is in my email address, and if you don't even attempt to write it, then I'm like, unfortunately, it's an immediate no, because to me, that immediately shows a lack of attention to detail and lack of care, and I wouldn't give them a chance. Even if the rest of their pitch was stunning, I wouldn't care.
It
So
is that attention to detail, though. And I know because my name is spelled differently too. And yes, it can be spelled so many different ways, but it's also in my email address and everything. So it's such an important step that I think so many people miss because we run around busy and just throwing things at the wall to see what sticks.
Yes, exactly. And the lack of personalization also indicates that it's just something that has been outsourced. And that's why I'm venturing away from me pitching for clients now, because I want to work with well-meaning entrepreneurs to kind of like work with them together to co-create these pitches, incorporating video pitches and voice pitches, because those are the things that you can't do en masse. And that is what makes podcasters feel special, because you can't personalize a voice note and kind of like send it to like multiple people. If there was a Rick or a Dana, a Jacqueline, right? They can't do that. And so that's why I'm focusing more on this like self-sustaining thing. Like once you learn the skills, you're set for life. So you don't actually have to outsource the pitch process to somebody else. It's something that actually should come from you. And I'm collaborating with a good amount of podcasters right now, and they're all telling me the same thing: personalization and relevancy. And these are really, really big people in the podcasting space. And to know that that's what they care about, and to know the quality of pitches that agencies are sending today, I know that there's a bigger way that we can serve them. And so that's why I'm really thrilled to be on this interview with you today, Jacqueline, because this is the starting point. So the personalized pitching process, PR, personalization, and relevancy. So the relevancy is just taking your own topics of influence from phase number 1 and applying it to their podcast mission. Make sure it's in sync with what they believe, that's in alignment with their own brand values and what they're trying to accomplish, who they are serving. Make sure your topics of influence are in tune with that, and then you're more likely to get a yes, for sure.
Well, not only are you more likely to get a yes, but doesn't that serve both you and the podcaster because you're in the right space? I think it's funny because, I mean, just from looking at Facebook posts that in these groups, people ask, I need podcast, interviewees, and they'll just start messaging out. Yeah. Before I even hit yes, I want to be on there, I look at their website, I look at their podcast, because what if I'm not aligned with it? Then I don't want to be on there because it's a waste of my time and their guest time.
I'm really glad that you brought that up, because I'm in these groups, but I'm only really there to lurk, to be honest, because I want to see what people are saying and what they're doing. And I'm almost turned off from those posts, because it's literally like, oh, it's me. Like that's all I see. And it's very rare that I see someone who will ask a question to see whether they are in alignment. I was like, hey, who do you serve? And I'm like, oh, I'm interested in this person because they actually care about the quality of the show and the brand values that you hold, and whether it's a mutual thing or not. So you're right, that only reach out to shows that serve an audience that you do, and you actually, mesh well with the host. I mean, like, it's Jacqueline, like, we've had the pleasure of meeting in real life, so we already kind of knew of each other, and we stayed connected here and there, like on Instagram and Facebook, and now we've come to this point. So we already had that rapport, and we already knew that we're on a similar wavelength, so we knew that this would be a great interview, and I hope that's how you feel.
But yeah. That's why I'm so happy to have you on the show.
yeah, that's a really brilliant point that you brought up. Make sure that you are aligned with the values of the host themselves, because that will give you a really clear picture of whether you actually will have this, vibe of being able to happily banter on an interview and laugh and, give some really good value bombs away.
You have to have that synergy. And I think this point right here actually applies to so much. Like if you're a brick and mortar and you are working with another brick and mortar and you are looking to bring in, to collaborate, you have to have synergy. If they don't
Yes.
serve the same the audience, or even believe like our values as entrepreneurs, if we don't mesh in values, and you can tell that pretty quick. I mean, this is not something that you have to go diving deep. You can tell pretty quick by the website, by listening to a few of the other podcasts, walking into a brick and mortar, because I own a salon and I have to collaborate with people as well. There's some businesses, like, we're all holistic and clean beauty. Well, I can't collaborate with somebody who uses all toxins. Yeah, you have to be very specific and be I'm losing the word, like, picky about who your
Selective.
podcast. Yes, selective. That's the word I was looking for. See,
Amen.
you read my mind. But it's so important, and I don't think people really realize how important that is, because as entrepreneurs, we're so busy, we are throwing things at the wall. Some people are just throwing it, but if you're throwing it at the wrong wall, you're wasting so much more time. So be selective and caring, and I just think it's so important, and I'm really glad that was step 2. See, I tried to go to step 3, but this makes all the difference in the pitching process.
Yes. And now we can move on to phase 3. Right. So pre-interview prep and post-interview optimization. So this is when you will have a successful pitch and you're very confident that you're aligned and you know that your topics of influence will be well received. Can't speak today. Blah, blah. So this phase is just so this phase is all about understanding how you can really prepare yourself on a psychological level and a physiological level before you actually jump into the interview. And what do you actually do afterwards as well? Because what most people think is that, the reason why people send pitches en masse is because, like, oh my God, I need X amount of interviews like per month in order to kind of stay relevant. And I'm like, no, that's not true. What matters is the quality of the podcast and the conversation that you have with the host. And when an interview goes live, that's not the only day that it matters. It matters throughout, until the end of time, pretty much, because this is a piece of content that you can continually add into like your cycle of evergreen content to market. So you can break down a podcast interview into an audiogram, like a quick snippet. You can do quote cards. You can create a blog. You could do like a video about it. And like, Jacqueline, right now, you're already thinking ahead of like, a video piece of content as well as an audio piece of content. So there are so many different ways that you can repurpose it, and it can, continually stay afloat. And that's what's really important. So I'm kind of going to skip over the pre-interview prep. Just a heads up. Something that I love to do and share with my clients and my students is that to create a ramp-up routine, or what I've learned in recent times is that some of my clients don't want to be ramped up because that's not their best performing state. Some of them actually need to calm down. So some of them will meditate, have a cup of tea, like non-caffeinated, of course, just to really calm themselves down, because that's where they are the most collected and confident. I myself, I have a bit of both. So I watch a video that always makes me grounded. And for anyone who's wondering what that video is, it's actually the 1-minute advert by Steve Jobs. It's called The Crazy Ones. And it reminds me that it's the people who break the rules and question the status quo that make the biggest wave, because they dare to try. That's not what he says, but that's pretty much the overarching message. And to me, that always reminds me of why I do what I do. But in other cases, if I feel like I need to be like super confident and ramped up, I will listen to All About That Bass by Megan Trainor, and I will dance around the room making the sassy moves, because I'm not a sassy person. I'm not a sassy person in general, but it's just like, it's like get really into
the space depending on what you need.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's like that's the ramp up routine. So that's something that, and it's the other simple things like making sure you have your microphone plugged in. You tell the people around you that, hey, I'm on an interview, like to calm yourself down, have notes, warm up your vocal cords, and like that's a whole process in itself. But that's like the first half of this phase. Like this is like the preparation. Yes, and having water. Thank you for reminding me.
I know. I was thinking, I hate drinking on video, but sorry.
Oh, no, what's really cool, guys, is that Jacqueline and I, we actually have the same color bottles. Yes. How cool is that? Cheers.
See, we are so in sync.
Right? I know. It's awesome. So that's like the first half. This is like as you're prepping to go on the interview. But when you do the interview, what happens after, I believe, is actually one of the most important things. Because the thing is with podcast interviews is not just about the visibility, but it's often the starting point of many long-term relationships. And we know the power of collaboration. We know what it's like when you really vibe well with someone and you have a mutual mission in common and you want to create something big together, and it could lead to more things. It could lead to the host hiring you, perhaps. It's not always the audience that might want to hire you, but it could be the host. And maybe they have a summit that's coming up and they want you to speak on it. Maybe they will have a, event that they're going to run when it's safe to run events again, to have you as a speaker. Or there may, like what's happened to me a lot is that a lot of the hosts actually invite me to teach inside of their paid memberships or their paid courses, masterminds. And that in itself is extremely powerful, because when someone is putting you in front of their paid audience, the level of trust in you is so much higher. And how do you cultivate that trust? Showing up with so much value and with a heart of service on the interview, because this is like the first layer of your relationship. But the trust will build as you continually show up and as you still are so in sync with who you are and you believe in your work. That is what's going to ramp up the know, like, and trust factor, which we hear about all the time. Know, like, and trust, right? And this is one of the many ways that you can get there. But for me, it's been incredibly powerful, because what I found with interviews, on podcasts versus, I'm not dissing at all blogs or videos, but there's a reason why I personally chose podcasting, because it's an audio medium. Because with videos, you often have to watch them, right? Like in order to get the most content. And blogs, you have to stop and read them. So these two mediums are ways that you can consume content, but it does require you to stop and pay attention. And depending on who you're serving, my audience, they're extremely busy, so they don't have time to watch really long videos. And that's okay, because I know it works for other people. But I know, for myself included, I listen to audiobooks and I listen to podcasts when I wash the dishes, when I'm cooking, when I'm cleaning out the house, when I did gardening, the other week as well. So it fits into my day instead of trying to make space to fit it. Does that make sense?
Totally. And I listen to audiobooks as well, because I don't have time to stop and read. As much as I love having a regular book and sitting there, we're busy. I'm an entrepreneur, multiple businesses, a mother, a wife, all these things that I don't have time to always stop. Now, occasionally I do like to have a video and see people, because you get that creative side of me needs to be able to see. But having the options it's so important. And audio is the easiest and quickest way to get your point and give value.
Yeah, and that's why I think it's so smart that you've done both video and audio, because audio is going to really work for those who are on the go a lot. But for those who do want to be able to see the facial expressions and, and there are so many non-verbal communication cues that are given through video. So you've covered both. So that's great.
And I have the blog too, the written too.
So, so you covered all three. I feel like gold star cake.
I need a little gold star. No. but these are so important to be able to have the way to get in touch with people. And that's why what you do is so important, because when you sit down, and entrepreneurs, if you're thinking about being on, podcast or starting your own, all of these things, do it right from the beginning, and you're going to be so much more successful, and you're going to be able to reach and really have that longevity, because like you said, it doesn't end at just that one podcast. It is a relationship, and relationships are so much more important than we think about. Sometimes we're just, again, with the whole spaghetti on the wall. I don't know why that's my thing for the day, but we do. I feel like we throw things, and that's the same way in a lot of entrepreneurs with relationships. It's like, okay, so I did this with you real quick. Great, thank you, and then you never reach back out, or you never like collaborate again. And I think it's so important to keep that line of communication open.
Yeah, and that's what it's all about, really. I mean, there's a reason why the topic of networking is one of those things that people know that they need to do, but they kind of forget why. Is because they will find that the relationships that are going to elevate, both of them mutually for years to come. I mean, some of my bestest friends are amazing people that I know I can collaborate with, and I hire my friends, like I pay them like full price and everything, because that's a way that I know that I can really serve them, and they hire me back, with no discount, no guilt, no obligation whatsoever. And that's because you built that professional relationship where you actually respect each other as well. It's not just liking each other, but respecting that they're also a business. And when you see people that way, that they're not just an opportunity maker for you, but literally they're just someone who you can really help with their mission, and they may do the same for you, or you can do it together. And that in itself is so powerful. And this is kind of like one of the starting points that you can create these relationships, because many podcasters are thought leaders. And so in order to even begin having this relationship with them, you need to come from a place of service. And I guarantee that if you follow these steps that we've laid out for you today, the purposeful strategy, personalized pitching, and just thinking about the post-interview optimization, that is really going to help you move forward with these relationships.
And I am so happy that you came on, and this has been so valuable for everyone watching. I want them to make sure to keep in touch with you. I want them to reach out to you, because if they are looking to add this on, this is not, negotiable. You've got to get this down. You've got to know what you're doing, so that you come at it from a very professional and heart-centered way, which is everything that you're focused on. And that's so amazing. So let's put up your website is here. And because I put everything on the blog, it's so easy for them to find you. All of your links will be there, all of your information, so they can hop right over there and just find you super easy. And then how do they work with you? I think that you have a few ways.
Yeah, so there are 3 main ways, and I'll tell you like one of my, actually no, there's 2 of them are my favorite. I can't choose. Okay, so let's start off with the private. So there are ways to work with me one-on-one. One of my favorite ways of doing that is actually a done in a day VIP experience. So if you want to be on a call with me where we can refine your story and really nail your topics of influence, and where you can walk away with a custom pitch that's actually in alignment with your brand and the podcast you want to reach out to, I highly recommend that you consider a done in a day VIP experience. And if you're looking for something a little bit more long term, there is another one-on-one option where I train you and your team how to build a self-sustaining podcast guesting system, so you don't have to outsource it. But it's not like it's just we build it and buy or anything like that. There will be a way for us to continually keep in touch. So, if you need a pitch critique or you need some feedback, there is an ongoing option from that. And So that's if you want to focus on like the one-on-one. But if you're somebody who thrives in a group setting and you really get a lot from like feeding off each other's energy and just like being in that group environment, I'd love it if you could join the waitlist for my From Pitch to Podcast guest group program. I only take about 18 people per cohort, and it's a really, really special experience where we go through the system together. And there's just really something special about the group environment. So whichever floats your boat, whether you want a one-on-one like VIP kind of experience or you want a group setting, I would love, if any of this has resonated today, I would love to hear from you and to see if we could possibly work together.
Of course. I think that all three of those, I love that you give options. So it really does fit with whoever needs help to start, whether it's group or one-on-one and done in a day. That's awesome. I mean, if we're in a hurry and we just need stuff done, you give a lot of options. So I highly recommend all of you watching to go and follow her and sign up for her the wait list, because right now when we're recording it's on a wait list, so we'll see when that opens up next. But I just so appreciate all of your knowledge and all of your energy on the call today.
Thank you so much. It's been such an enlightening conversation, and I think it's just so in line with intuitive life. So thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you to all of our viewers and our guests. Just thank you from the bottom of my heart. This is so fun. And this is really why I got into this, because look at the amazing people I get to hang out with. Like, this is so much fun.
The feeling's mutual, completely mutual.
Thank you. So everyone, come over to the blog, check it out, listen to the audio or the video, whichever one, fits with you. And we'll catch you on the next one. Thank you so much for listening today. Please make sure that you go over to the blog and follow all the links for our guests and get the downloads that we talked about. I would also really love and appreciate if you would share this podcast with your friends and family. And if you wouldn't mind taking just a minute to leave a review, that would mean the world to me. Thank you again so much from the bottom of my heart for listening and staying tuned. Can't wait to see you next week on the show.